welcome to the Bare Metal Cyber C-Risk Prepcast. This series helps you prepare for the exam with focused explanations and practical context. Monitoring and analyzing key risk indicators, KRIs, is not a passive data collection activity. It is an active, continuous risk surveillance process that enables early detection of rising exposure. KRIs only serve their purpose if they are consistently tracked, correctly interpreted, and promptly acted upon. Without effective monitoring, even the most well-designed KRIs become just numbers on a dashboard. Risk signals go unnoticed, treatment opportunities are missed, and governance oversight weakens. C-risk professionals ensure that KRIs feed into operational decision-making cycles, executive reporting, and timely escalation. Monitoring is what makes KRIs meaningful. On the exam, static or unmonitored KRIs often explain why risk went undetected or residual scores remained inaccurate. The best answers show that KRIs are part of an active feedback loop, not a reporting checkbox. The first step in effective monitoring is to define protocols that govern how KRIs will be tracked. These protocols include the frequency of monitoring, whether real-time, daily, weekly, or monthly, depending on the volatility of the risk and the nature of the indicator. Each KRI must have a designated owner who is accountable for reviewing its trends, interpreting movement, and initiating action when necessary. Alert mechanisms must also be in place. Automated emails, dashboard flags, workflow notifications to ensure that any deviation from normal thresholds receives attention. Integration with GRC platforms, analytics dashboards, or centralized reporting tools enables visibility across teams. On the exam, when a scenario describes an indicator being in place, but risk still increasing, the cause is often that no one was actively monitoring. The right answer emphasizes clear frequency, ownership, and system integration to ensure no KRI goes unnoticed. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other podcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Thresholds are what make KRIs actionable. They define trigger points that shift the KRI from background monitoring into required response. Most organizations use a three-tier model. Green indicates normal operating range, yellow signals caution, and red marks a breach that demands immediate investigation. Each threshold must be tied to an action plan. A yellow-level trend might require further review or an update to the treatment plan. A re-level breach might require executive escalation or temporary operational changes. These actions must be documented and enforced through escalation logic. On the exam, a common clue is when a KRI breach is ignored, indicating either thresholds were poorly defined or no escalation workflow was in place. The best exam answers will show KRIs not just as data, but as decision triggers with defined consequences. Trend analysis is the heart of KRI interpretation. One-time breaches may not always indicate growing exposure, but patterns over time almost always do. For example, a gradual increase in failed login attempts over weeks may indicate an emerging brute force attack campaign. A steady drop in compliance rates may reflect growing process fatigue or staff disengagement. Interpreting KRI trends requires looking at frequency, volatility, and context. Time series charts, heat maps, and moving averages help highlight meaningful patterns that may not be obvious in raw numbers. C-risk professionals must learn to read these patterns, identify inflection points, and link them back to risk scenarios. On the exam, questions often focus on whether candidates understand how trend data adds insight beyond individual data points. The best answers emphasize historical movement, pattern recognition, and context-aware evaluation. KRI data is only useful if it is trustworthy. Validation is the process of confirming that each KRI reflects accurate, timely, and complete information. This includes verifying data sources, reviewing formulas and calculation logic, confirming units of measure, and auditing data pipelines that feed dashboards or reports. If KRI input data is inaccurate, delayed, or miscalculated, the entire monitoring program can be undermined. Poor data quality leads to missed warnings or false alarms. On the exam, when KRIs appear in a scenario but the outcome was still missed, the root cause may be a data integrity issue. The best answers will include periodic data validation, source audit, and calculation review as part of the KRI lifecycle. Escalation is what connects KRI monitoring to the risk response cycle. When a KRI breaches its defined threshold, risk professionals ensure that risk owners and control owners are immediately notified. This triggers root cause analysis to determine what is causing the rise in risk, whether the control is failing or whether the threat environment has changed. The risk score may need to be reassessed, controls may need to be updated, or new treatment actions may need to be launched. All escalation events and resulting decisions must be logged in the GRC platform or risk register. Governance teams must review unresolved or repeated breaches to evaluate whether systemic gaps are emerging. On the exam, when governance fails to act or oversight appears weak, the likely issue is a broken escalation path. Correct answers involve structured notification, formal review, and risk adjustment procedures. To ensure that KRI insights translate into actual risk profile updates, each KRI must be linked directly to one or more entries in the risk register. This linkage allows residual risk scoring to be updated when KRI trends indicate that exposure is changing. For example, if an indicator tied to third-party vendor responsiveness breaches its threshold, the residual risk for vendor disruption must be reassessed. Risk professionals also ensure that rationale for register updates is documented, what changed, why it matters, and how it was measured. On the exam, a clue like KRI showed breach but risk remained unchanged signals that the register was not aligned with real-time indicators. The correct answer involves reestablishing this link and updating both scoring and treatment plans based on KRI intelligence. KRI trends must be reported to stakeholders in a format they can understand and act on. Executives need high-level summaries, what's trending, what's breached, and what the business impact is. Operational teams need detailed timing, thresholds, and action steps. Risk professionals support communication by preparing tailored dashboards, summary reports, and exception briefings. KRI performance must be presented at risk committee meetings, audit prep sessions, and strategy planning forums. Risk candidates must be prepared to translate technical KRI data into business-aligned narratives. On the exam, governance failure often stems from poor reporting, KRIs that were known but never communicated in the right forum. The best responses reflect tailored communication, clear visuals, and actionable summaries for decision-makers. No monitoring system is static. KRIs must be continuously improved. Risk professionals help refine KRIs that generate too many false alarms or that lack actionable meaning. Indicators that no longer reflect risk because the risk has changed or the process has evolved must be retired. New KRIs must be added when new threats emerge, new systems are implemented, or new controls are designed. Benchmarking against industry standards, peer organizations, or internal historical trends helps ensure relevance and competitiveness. KRI reviews should be part of the periodic risk assessment cycle and integrated into audit preparation. On the exam, questions about noisy or ineffective KRIs often require recognizing when to retire or refine indicators. The best answers reflect continuous improvement, not just maintenance. Risk exam questions related to KRI monitoring often test your ability to detect failures in escalation, recognize trend value, and update governance documentation. You may be asked what's missing from a monitoring plan, and the correct answer could be ownership, frequency, or escalation triggers. If a threshold breach is ignored, the root cause is often a missing notification or a broken response workflow. When asked what should follow a breach KRI, the best response involves escalating, reassessing residual risk, and adjusting controls or treatment plans. If a risk profile remains static despite clear warning signs, the register needs to be updated using validated KRI intelligence. The strongest answers show that risk professionals drive active surveillance, data-informed action, and integration with governance. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Bare Metal Cyber CRS Prepcast. For more episodes, tools, and study support, visit us at baremetalcyber.com.